Should you put your delay before or after your amp in your signal chain? The answer might surprise you. It's so good. Actually, this is just water. YouTube has a fascination with coffee. I don't really like coffee, so roll that intro. I'm starting a new series on this channel. It's called Advice from the Block, as in chopping block. In this segment, I'm going to take the advice of the internet and literally put it to the test. At the end of the video, you should know whether or not this is worthwhile pursuing and adding to your own regiment, or if you should pass on it. The first tip on the block is to put your delay pedal in the effects loop or after your amp for the best sound. Let's see if this tip passes the chopping block. For the delay settings, we'll do a short slapback, a medium solo delay sound, a long ambient delay sound, and then a multi-delay. So we'll have clean, slapback, medium, long, multi, crunch, slapback, medium, long, multi-delay, and a heavily distorted slapback, medium, long, multi-delay. So let's get started. Alright, so for this test, I'm running through the Axe effects. Though this can work for any tube amp, solid state amp, digital amp, whatever you have, this will work. So I'm going to have the delay before the amp, and then after the amp but before the speaker, which in real physical amp world, that is essentially the same thing as a effects loop. So delay before the amp and then effects loop. So for this test, we're going to do a clean, a crunch, and a distorted sound. For the delay settings, we're going to do a short slapback, a medium solo style delay, a long delay, and an ambient multi-delay. So we'll have a clean, slapback, medium, long, multi-delay, crunch, slapback, medium, long, multi-delay, and an overdriven slapback, medium, long, multi-delay. I'm running the Fender Stratocaster, so sounds may vary based on your amp or your pickup or your guitar even, but the point is figuring out if the delay sounds better after the amp, before the speaker, inside of the effects loop. Let's find out. Alright, so for reference, this is my clean sound. Let's do the delay, the short slapback delay, which I'm going to say is 250. Let's say 250 milliseconds. Before the amp. We'll see what this sounds like. Alright. Wasn't too much in the way. Sounded pretty good. Sounded kind of chicken picking like. I like it. It sounds alright. Let's copy paste the settings, which is the equivalent of moving your pedal from before the amp into the effects chain. So let's try it now after the amp, in the effects chain. So it's cleaner, it's crisper, It's a lot tighter. The delayed sounds aren't amplified; they're not distorted. Even though it was a clean amp, they still had a little bit of gain. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So listen to this. The delay decay doesn't change in pitch. It just kind of, whatever the sound is, it kind of falls off. But if you listen to it before, the decay sound, they're also amplified by the amplifier. And while my amp doesn't have much gain, you can see right here, it still amplifies the decaying sounds. Really, it's preference on clean amps. It's kind of a cool sound. It's a very short decay sound versus. I don't know. I like them both. For chicken picking, I might put it before. Like for really clean country stuff, I might leave it before and do. Versus. I don't know, I kind of like both. Both are, they have their own unique flavor. So, I'm going to say for clean, running your delay after the amp doesn't necessarily sound better. But, it sounds different. I think it still works on a clean slapback setting. Alright, now let's try a longer medium delay, kind of like for a solo. This is before the amp block. Before the amp, it just sounds muddied. It sounds like it gets in the way of what you're playing next. See, it's kind of like, maybe I'm not playing. Maybe that's too fast to play. Let's try it. Let's try it in the effects loop. Already that sounds better. It sounds more harmonized. Let's try it a little bit slower. It gets out of the way. It doesn't run into each other. It's not colliding. It sounds so much better. So for a clean amp setting on a medium solo delay, putting your delay in the effects loop after your amp passes the chopping block. Alright, now for a long ambient delay. Let's go like 1200 for this one. Whoa. 1200 milliseconds. And changes to 1200 as well. Alright, so 1200, 1200. This is a long ambient delay before the amp on a clean setting. Okay, let's try it afterwards. I almost didn't notice a difference. Maybe because it was so far after each other, but alright, let's try it before. Well, that's interesting. If you notice, you could hear the third delay, or the third repeat before the amp because it was still getting amplified, whereas the second one kind of already decayed off, and maybe you heard it, I couldn't hear it as well, but it was still there, but not nearly as audible as having it before. Something like 1200 milliseconds, that's a really long delay. For a clean amp, before or after sounds fine to me. Chances are you're not playing fast runs like a... Maybe you are, but usually for long ambient delays, you're doing ambient sounds like a whale call or something. I don't know. I think either or will work. So, to wrap this up for the clean settings, I think it works both ways, before and after the amp, for the slapback and the long ambient, but it's more important to have the delay inside of your effects loop for the medium to long ones. I think that's going to be the case for all of them. Let me take that back. I think for the delay, it's going to be inside the effects loop for the rest of them going forward. So for the crunched and heavy distorted sounds. For the clean, I think it's really a matter of taste, because it is such a clean amp that you're not getting in the way of distortion. Let's go to the crunch settings, find out if this holds up. Be back in a sec. Alright, so for my crunch sound, I'm going through a Marshall JTM 45 sound. It sounds like this for a reference tone. There's your reference. So let's begin the test. Let's go delay, short slapback of, let me say 250. I think that's what we said. 250, 500, 1200. Alright, so delay before. Alright, let's try delay after. Already I think it sounds better afterwards. It's not nearly as muddy. It's not running into each other. It's not as beefy before as it is afterwards. Clear winner for a slapback delay. For a crunch setting, definitely inside the effects loop. And I think that's going to be the same for all of them going forward, but let's find out. Let's boost this up to 500. Here's a medium style delay, like a solo, with a crunch setting. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Here it is inside the effects loop. And before. Nope, right there. Those last couple notes. Definitely can tell that's not where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be in the effects loop. So for crunch, medium solo delay, settings, yes, it passes the block. Now let's go to 1200. All right, crunch setting, long ambient delay before. Nope, not at all, not even a little bit. Yeah. For crunch settings, definitely in the effects loop. I have a feeling it's going to be the same for the distorted. The delay before the amp just... You have the delay decays, which is what you're looking for in longer delay settings, and those get amplified by the amplifier, and they just sound... They're not as smooth. It's not... it's too much in your face. It's too muddy. I don't like it. Now, it'd be a different story if you had the drive before the amp block or the delay block or your delay pedal, because you're distorting the signal before you hit the delay. And that's the key here. We're turning up the gain on the amp, and that's what's distorting the signal, not a drive pedal. So I think the key takeaway here is put your delays after your drive, whether that's through the tube amp, whether that's through the solid state amp or whatever, or your drive pedal. For the longer delays, they go after the drive, and I think that's the true test of the advice on the block today, is putting your drive not necessarily after your amp, but after your driven sound. So if it's a clean amp, it doesn't really matter, but if it's a dirty amp, it does matter. I think that's the key takeaway. Alright, now let's go to heavy distortion. We'll be back in a sec. Alright, so we're back. Here is my heavy distortion sound. Go ahead and leave a comment. I know it's not heavy metal distortion. It's not gent. But it's a test on delay, not metal sounds. Short slapback delay. Before the amplifier. 250. 250. Let's see what it sounds like. No. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I already knew that, but for science, we tried it anyways. Alright, slapback delay in the effects loop, heavy distortion. Sounds a lot better than before. I don't know if you'd ever use slapback in a heavy distorted setting, but if you did, definitely put it after. Medium sort of distortion before. Let's see here. Didn't sound terrible. Not the greatest. I have a feeling it's going to sound a lot better after the amp. So much better. And that follows true with the crunch settings. The delay happens after the gain settings. Just the fact of life, and I think that's what the advice in the chopping block is. You put your delay after the amp, after the gain. If you're running clean, it doesn't matter, but that's what I think they really mean, is put the delay after the drive, because you want your sound to be delayed, not your signal to be delayed, if that makes sense. You want the sound coming out of your amp to be delayed, not the delay happening before your gain. Long, ambient, heavy gain setting. Let's try it out before. Like with all these ambient delays, and it's not really even ambient delays, it's just super long delay. I realize that. But it sounds okay before, but it just kind of gets in the way. Let's try it with it in the effects loop. So what I've noticed with these longer ones, if you put it before, it's kind of like the first time, like junk, and it comes like at your face like really harsh. But if you put it in the effects loop, it it's smoother. It comes in a lot nicer. It's not as harsh. So I think for high gain settings, putting your delays after your amp, or let's call it the drive, the gain, definitely passes the block. Let's go back and do multi-delay, because we forgot that, or I forgot that. You didn't forget that, I did. Sorry. Maybe I'll put it back in there, snip it in, or maybe I'll just put this is the multi-delay section. I don't know. Anyways, to the multi-delay. Now for multi-delay, I can get really crazy and do short, long, medium, mixture of all between. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do one test. I think we all know what the answer is going to be, but just for sake of science, here is multi-delay in a heavy rock setting. We're going to work our way backwards this time because I'm already here. We'll work our way back to the clean. Multi-delay before the amp. It's cool. It's probably not what you were looking for, but maybe that's a setting that you can do for a specific song. I don't know. Let's try it in the effects loop. Let's go back to before. After. Alright, so I was wrong. Multi-delay, actually I would probably use the one before the amp. It's kind of the weird ambient trippy sound that I like going for more than the ambient delays coming afterwards, but I would use both of these settings. I think for multi-delay you can use it either before or after your drive settings for heavily distorted sounds. Let's go back to the crunch sound and see if that holds true as well. Alright, multi-delay for crunch setting before the amp. It doesn't sound nearly as cool as the high gain. Let's try it afterwards. kind of similar to the high gain. The before is not nearly as drastic and not nearly as interesting as it was on the high gain setting, but it still works. Two different, completely different sounds. I think having the multi-effects or multi-delay after the amp block, after the gain settings, gain stages, is a lot more useful than before. You can probably make that argument for the high gain, but I don't really like the multi-delay before the amp on a crunch setting. So at the end of the video, I'll put a chart up that says, what I think works and what doesn't work. You might be hearing these sounds thinking, Ryan, well, like, those would be amazing sounds. That's exactly what I'm looking for. If that's the case, great. I'm talking about for the average user. Not for like a specific sound that someone might have in their head, but for someone who wants to go on a gig. It's like, hey, you need to play some David Gilmour, like, you need multi-delay. You're likely going to put it after, not before the amp. But I could be wrong. You might want to do things differently. Just going off of my own experiment here. So let's go back to the clean setting and put this to the test, or put this to rest one more time. All right, clean multi-delay before. Okay, let's try it afterwards. Like with all the other cleans, I think it doesn't matter. I think whatever your preference is, they're slightly different, but they both sound really cool. So there you go. Does a amplifier sound better with the delay after the effects loop? Depends. I'm not going to say, yes, this is 100% certain, and I'm not going to say, no, this is 100% wrong. I think in the context of which people said it online was that the delay setting needs to come after like heavy drive or a heavy cranked amp. Yes, that is the case. But for clean amps, no, that's not true. It can work either way. I feel like most forums online anyways nowadays talk about heavily distorted amps like that's the norm. That's certainly not the norm. It might be common, but it's not all music that's going out there. Well, there you go, guys. That was our first advice on the block video. Hopefully you found it helpful, you found it useful. For the results, here's the chart that talks about whether or not the advice works for a clean, crunch, distorted, slapback, medium, long, multi-delay. If you want a printout version, link below. Go to my website, sustainandresonance.com. Underneath the resources pages, you'll find this chart. You can print it out so you know where you can put your delay settings or where it will sound best for what kind of delay sounds and amp sounds you're looking for. There you have it, guys. I'm not ready to say this is 100% foolproof, but it also doesn't fail. So for the first advice on the block, we're going to say it passes, but then some, right? Definitely use it. Play around with delay. Delay is your friend. It will definitely sound better in a high gain crunch setting after the amp, but if you're running clean, you can run it before or after. Just depends on your preference. Alright guys, that was our first advice from the block video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, let the music play.